This is Patrick Lowe, EDUC703 video assignment, and I am choosing to discuss the anti-literacy laws that were passed between 1740 and 1834. These laws were passed because slave owners did not want people or slaves at that time to try to gain their freedom by forging documents and by saying they were free people and moving on to another state, which would kind of negate their investment in these people. Excuse me. This also was a key portion of the 1831 Nat Turner's Rebellion, excuse me, which was slaves that were led by Nat Turner, who was an educated black man, and he was the person that got some people to uprise against their owner. And what happened in this rebellion was that it resulted in about 225 people as a total that were killed. And so, because Nat Turner was an educated man, and because he was encouraging other slaves to rise up against their owners, they passed these anti-literacy laws saying that slaves and even free black people should not be educated and should not be able to read and write. This brings us up to Margaret Crittenden Douglas, who was in Norfolk, Virginia, and she saw the need to teach free black people to read and write. Um, she was actually arrested for this because anti-literacy laws were still in place, and Margaret Crittenden said, I have no idea that this law was in place. So she goes to her trial, I beg your pardon, and her defense basically consisted of saying, if I can't teach these free black people to read and write, then the church should not be able to teach them either, because either way, you're teaching these people. And the church came back and said, well, it is basically the constitutional right of the church to teach, and black literacy is basically dangerous. She was fined $1 for her transgressions and had to serve a month in jail. And when she was released from jail, she moved to Philadelphia, wrote a book about her experiences with everything that was going on. This was in 1854. And when she moved from Norfolk to Philadelphia, wrote this book, this brought a lot of national attention to anti literacy laws. And in 1867, these laws were abolished. Um, how we can equate this to present day is, I remember as a young child in elementary school, and they used to still divide us up. This is in the late 1970s. They would say, okay, black boys raise your hand, white boys raise your hand, black girls, white girls, that sort of thing. And even though these laws were abolished in 1867, we were still being divided by race, even as late as the 1970s, early 1980s. Um, Certainly, we have evolved from that point, and we have now moved on from what we've seen these laws to be. If we look at the map here and we talk about the 7 states where anti-literacy laws were, mostly in the South, you look from Louisiana all the way up to Virginia, and from Shreveport, Louisiana, all the way up to Manassas, Virginia. That's about 1,167 miles in just a dead space where anti-literacy laws were in place. So in that entire distance, there was no education going on just for a certain sect of people.